Before we dive into today's episode, I want to invite you to consider attending the Hope Restored Trauma Intensive, happening September 12th to 15th in Kissimmee, Florida. If you are looking for a safe space to share your hard story, where you will be seen and heard, if you need help working through your past or present day trauma, if you want to be in a community where women will hold space for your pain and point you to Jesus and his healing grace, this intensive might be for you. Ann Simmons, Brenda Stewart, and I have partnered to bring you a weekend of spiritual encouragement, deep work, biblical teaching, and clinical practices. We have limited the intensive to a small, intimate gathering, so sign up as soon as possible. Learn more by clicking the link in the show notes. Now for today's episode. Today, I continue my conversation with my husband, Greg, as we celebrate being married 30 years. This episode is all about family, how God miraculously gave us our kids, family memories and traditions, as well as the challenges we have faced as parents of 5 now adult kids. Hi, friend. You're listening to Find Hope Here. I'm your host, Teresa Whiting, author, speaker, ministry leader, friend, and fellow struggler. This is a podcast about the messy, complicated, painful parts of life, but also the beautiful, joy-filled hope that Jesus promises. Each week, we dig deep into God's Word together and talk about how His truth impacts our everyday lives. I'm not going to ask you to sit with me and have coffee because I seem to have my best conversations while I'm just doing life. So I'd love to hang out with you as you walk or fold laundry or drive to work. You're invited to join me in pursuing the hope God promises. No matter where you are or where you've been, I pray you always find hope here. Let's jump into today's episode. All right. Second topic I kind of want to move into is talking about family and raising kids. And people who have been listening to the podcast for a while, they've probably heard me share the story of how we, got all of our kids. So I thought it'd be fun for you to share the story of how we became parents. And I'm giving you a heads up right now that I might interrupt you if I need to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we had obviously talked about kids, prayed about kids. We had our great plan. I think we were going to wait a year just to spend that year together. And then based on your family history and everybody else we knew, we just thought we'd start having kids. And I think we even talked about having 5. So after that first year, we didn't get pregnant and continued not to get pregnant. And so we went to get checked out. At least some preliminary testing when we were living in Connecticut, because we also weren't sure we could afford kids while we were still there in Connecticut. And they said, well, you might not be able to have children of your own. There was more testing they could do, but we were waiting. So we kept trying and nothing seemed to work. And then when we moved to Florida, we thought, well, what if God is doing this so that he could bring us kids a different way? And we started talking about and praying about adoption. And we had a pastor at that time who recommended a agency in New Hampshire. And it was just interesting because we didn't have the money to even fill out the paperwork that you normally would have to do. So we let them know of our situation. And it wasn't long after that that we got a call from that agency that basically said, here's the situation. We've got these 2 kids born in Romania. Doctor's family from New Jersey saw this program on TV about Romanian orphanages, had a heart for them. They already had, 4 kids of their own under age 7? Under 6. Went to adopt a child from Romania and adopted 2
twins,
boy and girl. brought them back, and just through different circumstances, bonding issues, whatever it may have been, or the fact they already had all these young kids, um, they thought maybe God had us bring them back to give to a family, and maybe a pastor's family. So they mentioned that to this agency. They called us and said, "What do you think?" And we were excited.
Can I just say, we hadn't even filled out an application yet.
Right.
We hadn't given them any money.
Right.
I mean, nothing. You had a conversation. To this day, I've never even spoken to anyone at that agency. So I don't know how God gave us these kids, but it was like so clearly like him handing them, saying, here's your kids right here.
Yes. And to add to God's sovereignty in all this is the family that had adopted them were in New Jersey, about what, 20 minutes from your parents' house?
Yeah, not
at the
even.
time? Yeah. So then it was like, hey, can you get on a plane and come meet them? And you went to be able to meet them. And so just to see how God did that and brought us Alex and Isabella, and I think we brought them home Father's Day weekend of 1997.
Yeah.
So basically 3 years right after we got married. They were both 2, and then we continued to desire for you to get pregnant. And do I say who we went to?
Yeah, I say tell them, because it might work for somebody. It worked for us.
Yes. So I like to say we went to a witch doctor, but it wasn't a witch doctor. It was a iridologist.
Yes.
So they work with the eyes. So they take pictures of your pupils. Of your pupils. They take pictures, and from that they can tell what are weaknesses in your body. And what?
I don't think they take pictures. I think they just looked in our eyes. They just looked. And they were like, the theory.
I think they took pictures.
The theory is that the nerve endings in your body are connected to your iris, kind of like foot reflexology. Same thing with your eyes. Like you can see different parts of your body through your eyes. It's not witch doctory.
No, it's not. But they did things like this.
It's called muscle testing.
And then I put my arms up, and they're pressing down on my arms. And so I don't know anything about this except, and a diet.
No red meat.
No red meat.
No sugar. No whites.
No whites.
No flour. I hope you're watching the YouTube video, because you need to see his face right now.
And a bunch of pills.
Yes, we did.
Herbs.
We took a lot of herbs. And you said, I'll do this for 6 months. Like this is the man who eats Oreos for breakfast and ice cream for dinner.
Getting hungry. 3 months later?
3.5. They said, you'll know in 3 to 4 months if this is going to work for you.
We were pregnant. So I'm not, I have not really criticized that since then, and have mentioned that to other people to give it a try. It was obviously God who opened the womb, but he used the iridologist to help us. And as soon as you got pregnant, I was off the diet.
And I stayed on it.
And we still got pregnant again after that with twins.
Yes, when Bree was 8 months old.
So 0 to 5 kids in 3.5 years. And it was an awesome blessing of God. And the 5 children we had talked about and prayed about before, God brought to us, but not as we expected. And so, it was crazy, but it's an awesome story of God's provision and sovereignty. It is.
I love telling the story of how God gave us kids. There's so much more, even just to Isabella and Alex's story. Many years later, we met their biological brother. It's a huge, long, amazing story. Maybe someday they'll come on the podcast and be willing to tell it, but that's not what we're going to talk about right now. Obviously, we had a lot going on during those early years. It was crazy. I call those years the survival mode years. So what did we do during that time? What do you say? What do you say to people who have a bunch of little kids at home, or even just one or two little kids at home? Because I think it's hard.
Right.
It's an
Right.
adjustment. So
Yeah.
what were some of the things we did to try to strengthen our marriage when the kids were little?
Well, at least from my perspective, I tried to help when I could and be home at night and the weekends and take the kids with me to do different things as they grew a little older. So I tried on that part.
Yeah, and can I just say, like, one of my biggest pet peeves when people would say, "Is Greg babysitting?" I'd be like, no, Greg's a father. Greg is their dad. Greg is not a babysitter. Okay, just needed to stick that
I
in there.
got that in there. Thank you. Um, and we still took time together. Tried to when I came home, tried to spend some time talking to you, although that was difficult because you're usually getting dinner
A little
ready.
distracted.
So I would help with the kids or help however we could, but spend some time together each night. Still go on dates, find babysitters to be able to be with the kids, do things as a family, have special celebrations. So in doing that, I felt like part of it was, yes, you and I doing things separately, but also trying to do my part to relieve and to do things together as a family, I think also brought us closer together.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that too. And I think, we tried to stick with the things that we had started when we were first married. And I think that was helpful. And then I think serving together with the kids. We did stuff as a family. It wasn't everybody doing their own little thing. What are some of your favorite family memories?
Family memories, eating together, uh, having family Fridays where we would always do something together on Friday. That was my day off. So spending time at home, letting the kids pick things that we did, having fun, playing games. Sometimes as a pastor's family, we got to go enjoy different things, different trips. Our vacations usually would be going to visit family, but those are always fun. Being on the road together and being with other family. So what are some of your favorite memories of our family?
I loved holidays. We had a lot of traditions in our family that, every Christmas we would do certain things on birthdays. One of my favorite traditions is on our birthday, we'll go around the table and say something we love about the birthday person. And I just feel like that's a special thing that to try to affirm and encourage that person.
Still do
Um,
that.
we do. Family meetings. I loved family meetings. Our kids, not so much. They would groan and gripe. And here's how it would go in our house. Greg would run the family meeting, and if people were talking and interrupting, he would just stop and be silent. And and then somebody would be like, "Dad, keep talking." And then he would just be silent longer. And it was torture for all of us, including me. So those are
That
some
was fun.
fun memories of family meetings. So those are some of our fun family memories. And as we're talking on this podcast about for better and for worse, and as a family with 7 humans, we have gone through some tough stuff. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges we faced as a family.
Well, one of those challenges was at one of the times we were in between ministries. Um, we needed to sell our house and we didn't know where we were going to live. And so one of your brothers graciously opened up their home and we moved and lived with them for 10 months. Seven of them, seven of us, each had a dog. And that was challenging to live with another family. So even though there was a great blessing, it was a great challenge too. Plus that
Yeah.
meant our kids leaving where they've been going to school and then that was tough. But also realizing that we don't have control over our kids, what's going to happen in their lives. We can't protect them, some injuries they had, but also we couldn't guarantee that they were going to always love and walk with God all of their lives. And so I think one of the most challenging things is just, doing the best we can with them when they were in our house, but also knowing that they're going to have their own struggles, need to make their own decisions, and kind of, letting them do that and leaving them in God's hands. And that's hard.
I would agree. I'd say that the hardest part of this parenting journey so far has been realizing that we don't get to choose the path that our kids take, spiritually speaking. I've always seen parents whose kids have walked away from Jesus, and I'm always so eager to tell them, it's not the end of the story. And then seeing some of our kids choose not to follow in the path that we have walked as far as our faith and the things that we believe about Scripture and about Jesus. And that has been the hardest thing to watch. And I know that our kids, they're not ours, they're God's. And He loves them. He's going to pursue them with His steadfast, faithful love, no matter what we can see with our own eyes right now. But I admit, there are days when I am on the floor just crying out to God that He would hold them and bring them back to walking with Him. One thing that it's easy for me to do is to play the blame game and to ask myself, what did I do wrong and how did I mess up? And to realize our kids are free. Like, they're free to make their own choices. I think about the garden and the fact that God was the perfect parent. He was there walking with His kids face to face, and still they chose to pursue the things that He had asked them not to. And so instead of me spending all my time going into this deep, dark hole, my prayer is that we will take this to God and leave it in His hands and trust Him that He has our kids and that He loves them more than we do. And then even going way back, one of the challenges for us was being diagnosed with, I think they said, unexplained infertility. And just even as early as wanting to have kids and not being able to. I mean, from the time we started trying to the time I got pregnant was 3.5 years. And for some people, that's like, oh, that's nothing. That's not a lot of time. It's like 40 periods that you get. And every month, that devastation of like, we're trying and it's not happening. And, it's just, that was hard. And then going from that to 5 kids, 5 and under.
Starting with 2-year-olds.
Yeah. I mean, just, there was just so much. I feel like it's always been some sort of challenge, either no kids or lots of kids. And now it's lots of people leaving and they're all gone. Like, I feel like this is really one of our first years of true empty nesting. Like, the kids are grown, they are adults. So speaking of empty nesting, how are you feeling moving into this season?
It's like how happy we are. I mean, I feel great.
We're so alike.
I have been looking forward to this, but I know it's also challenging. It's very hard for you not having the kids here, and I enjoyed having the kids as well. But I also like just you and me. So there's lots of positives to that, I think, and challenges to be able to reconnect when it's just you and me. What does that look like now, moving forward?
Yeah. You're excited. I'm sad. You have been looking forward to this. I have been dreading it. Really for the last several years. I mean, I loved the teenage years with our kids. Like, I loved being the house where the sleepovers were taking place. I loved taking trips with our kids, doing stuff together. So for me, and I was the one home doing the stuff. So I feel like it's a bigger loss. It's a bigger change. I was a homeschool mom. I was stay-at-home mom for 27 years. Like, that's a huge adjustment. You still have the same job. You still are a pastor. You're still going in to work every day. and my whole entire life has changed. And so I feel like I'm in this major transition, and I don't love it, but I do see the blessings. I do see, like, we do have more time together. We have more freedom. I can make cereal for dinner and you don't care, which is really nice. Also, I feel like this is another time we have to be intentional. We can easily just, like, you do your thing and I do my thing and we kind of just drift apart. But I really want to be intentional about moving toward each other. And there's also like this trepidation because I feel like there's a target on our backs because we are starting a new ministry. I was telling somebody this weekend, this is the first ministry that we're starting in like 27 years without kids. Like, our first ministry we started without kids. Our second ministry, we got our kids within just a few months.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, every ministry we went into, we went in as a family. And now it's just us again, stepping into ministry. And we're at such a different place than we were. I mean, I remember at our first church, someone called me a baby, and I was so disheartened and discouraged. And that's not nice, by the way. If your pastor's wife is young, don't tell her that she doesn't know anything and she's just a baby. But truly, I was 22, and now at 53, having had some 30 years of ministry behind us, we're going in as different people. We're going in with a lot more awareness of what ministry is like. And also, to me, a lot of fear and trepidation of, like, I know that Satan does not want us to succeed. He doesn't want us to be effective in this church and in this community. And so there's also a sense of fear of, like, this is a new stage and there's those risks involved.
You're only 52, by the way.
I am?
Aren't you?
I'm only 52. Yes, that's right. 52. Oh my goodness. Why? Okay, now that I know how old I am, I'm going to interrupt this episode and invite you back next week for the end of my conversation with Greg. But to end this episode, I have something really special. A couple of our kids sent in a recording of just some of their favorite family memories and messages for Greg and I. And so here is a special message from our youngest two, Gabrielle and Caleb.
One of my favorite memories that I have from growing up in the Whiting household is our family Fridays. We would do this almost every single Friday, and sometimes we would rotate who would choose what we do. But it was always just a really special time to come together as a family and play games or go out to eat or just be in each other's presence. And growing up, it felt so normal because we did it so often. But I look back now and I realize how much of a blessing it was to have those organized time to, like, be scheduled out of our week to spend together, because I do see now how it really bonded us as a family, and it's just sweet to look back on all the memories. And yeah, we would also make pizza almost every Friday, homemade pizzas. It was so fun. But yeah, that's one of the many of my favorite memories. Hi, Mom and Dad. I love you guys both so much, and I'm so thankful to call you guys my parents. Growing up, you guys wonderfully modeled to me and the siblings what it looks like to be faithful to one another. And that was done just like through your words and actions, but also just the way that it was so clear your love for one another flowed from a source, and that source was God. You both had individual relationships with the Lord, and I think that makes a world of a difference when it comes to loving another person well, is that you weren't drawing from your own strength to love them, but from the strength that we get from the Lord. And that's something that's really impacted me to this day. And yeah, I'm thankful that I grew up with you guys who just modeled love so well to each other. And That's one of the biggest blessings. And I love you guys, and I love that you still show that to this day, even though you've been through a lot together. But love is a choice, and you've continued just to be faithful to one another through the highs and the lows. And I think that's such a beautiful thing.
One thing that I love about my parents is that they continued to date one another throughout their 30 years of marriage and continue to. As a kid, I would see them regularly having date nights, and I knew that their relationship with each other was the most important thing to them within our family. I remember the first time that my dad told me that he loved my mom the most. And I remember being kind of insulted because I thought as their child it was supposed to be me. But the more that I've grown, the more I realized, no, actually, your spouse does need to be the most important person in your life, and you need to love them and pursue them the most in order to give a healthy picture of marriage to your children. And so I'm just really grateful for the way that my parents continue to pursue one another even throughout the years of marriage and child rearing, which I'm sure is not an easy thing to do because it's busy, but they always did that. One thing that always made me feel special as a kid that I'm so grateful for is having individual dates with my parents when they would take me out to go eat at a restaurant just to check up and see how I was doing, or maybe to go to a fun event. And as a guy, it was especially important whenever Dad would take me out to, it could have been anything, whether it was just a McDonald's after school one day to see how I'm doing, or whether it was a weekend trip to do something fun, or maybe a bike ride together. I always really cherish those moments. And one thing that I want to carry on is Family Fridays. I always loved that as a kid, knowing that we would come home, that we would make homemade pizza and then have dessert and play games. And that was one of many traditions that we had as a family. And those traditions are very special and just cemented into my mind that family time was important. And I think traditions was a really cool way to do that. So, Mom and Dad, I love you guys. I'm so grateful for your incredible picture of a godly marriage. And I hope to have something that comes close to it one day.
Thanks for hanging out with me today on Find Hope Here. I hope you'll come back next week when Greg and I finish our conversation. If you've ever wanted to take a little peek behind the scenes of ministry life, we talk about the for better and the for worse of life in a ministry family. If you're enjoying this podcast, would you do me the favor of taking just a couple seconds to leave a 5-star rating and review? It would mean so much to me, and it would help spread the word about Find Hope Here. In closing, I want to leave you with this prayer from Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you may abound in hope.